Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Ready for the meeting?
You betcha.
Should I start?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Halton Catholic District School Board's Policy Committee meeting for Tuesday, January the 12th, and it is 7 p.m. We're all joining in via Teams, and please be advised that this recording will also be available later on the board's YouTube channel. That being said, we'll get right started to our agenda. On item 1, we'll call to order, and if I could ask Trustee O'Brien to lead us with the opening prayer.
Thank you, Trustee Guzzo. If you could all make the sign of our faith, please, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of wisdom, we are gathered here today to serve you and conduct the affairs of the Halton Catholic District School Board. Give us knowledge and strength to do your will with a proper balance of eternal values and our present needs. May we accept our responsibilities, act with courage, and uphold the education of tomorrow's leaders. Grant us a sense of justice and wise stewardship, both now and forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Just a reminder to everybody, if you could leave your microphones off unless you have been recognized and have the floor. Moving on to item 2, approvals. We'll move to item 2.1, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion?
Do what?
Okay. Trustee Dewart, seconded by?
O'Brien.
Seconded by Trustee O'Brien. To anybody opposed? Seeing as nobody is opposed, the agenda has been approved. Moving on to item 2.2, approval of the minutes. Can I get somebody to move to approve the minutes of December 8th, 2020?
Do what?
Moved by Trustee Dewart, seconded by?
Charnota.
Trustee O'Hearn-Charnota. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. If I could just ask if we could move the agenda on the screen up so that we're following. Marta, can I just ask if we can move the agenda up on the screen? Just bear with us one moment, folks, so people can follow along. Thank you. So we're on item 3. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, action items. Item 4.1, policy I-02. Records information management. Can I have somebody move the following motion? Just give me bear with me one moment. I'm having technical difficulties this evening as well. I could not get into eScribe. So can I have somebody move that the policy committee recommend that policy I-02, records information management, be forwarded along with amendments to the January 19th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval?
I'll move it, Trustee Agnew.
Trustee Agnew, seconded by?
Do what?
Trustee Dewart. I will now hand it over to, we have our privacy manager on with us, Mark Grishek. I will hand it over to you to give some information on the changes to policy.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. The records information management policy update includes a number of changes that I think, or I believe, will make the policy more effective and more reader friendly. So what we've done is we've removed redundant information, really with the goal to reduce the length and improve readability. I've also integrated what's referred to as the generally accepted record keeping principles, or the principles, which provide a framework for managing information governance. Some of the other changes include, we've taken a section called legislative responsibility and making reference to it as it falls within or falls under the references section, as well as the principles section of the updated policy. The references also include the new ARMA International framework called the principles, which I just mentioned. And we've taken some other sort of, for example, the definition section, and we've reordered it so it's alphabetical as opposed to just a long list of terms. And more importantly, the terms that fall under that section are the terms that actually appear in the document. The long list of terms that appeared before will be repurposed and published in a different format, which will make it more efficient from a retrieval perspective. And another important update here is we had another policy called I-16, records management under MFIPA. To me, having two policies for records management is really redundant, and the information or the essence of what's captured under the updated policy will already include the I-16 requirements. Back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mark. I'll open up the floor if there's any questions. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Thank you very much for the information and for the changes, Mark. We'll go to a recorded vote. Trustee Goubert?
In favor.
I didn't see any other student trustees come on. Is Trustee Marashti or Trustee Kelly on with us?
I'm not sure about either one of them. I can check attendance list.
I didn't see, but I don't believe they are. So I'm going to go Trustee Agnew.
In favor?
Trustee Dewart.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa.
In favor, Madam Chair.
Trustee Antomasi. I don't know if he's been able to join in yet. Okay, Trustee Murphy. Trustee Murphy. Okay, Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota.
In favor?
So that makes 5 trustees in favor. So if Trustee Murphy or Trustee Antomasi numerically, it would be numerically insignificant. So this policy will be brought to the next board meeting. So moving on to item 4.2, policy II-48. Violent threat risk assessment. Can I please have a mover that the policy committee recommends that policy II-48 violent threat risk assessment be forwarded along with amendments to the January 19th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval?
I'll move it. Jornota?
Trustee O'Hearn Jornota, seconded by
Duart,
Trustee Duart. Okay. Superintendent Cordero, if you want to give us some information on the changes presented in front of us.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Policy II-48, Violent Threat Risk Assessment, was reviewed as part of the regular policy review cycle. Minor changes have been made to the policy to include language that aligns with the Halton Community Violent Threat Risk Assessment VTRA protocol of 2013. References were added to include relevant documents. Principles were updated to include reference to the Human Rights Code. The revised policy II-48 Violent Threat Risk Assessment is attached for your review and consideration by the Policy Committee. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
I'll open up the floor to any trustees. If trustees, do you have any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Superintendent Cordero. We'll go to a recorded vote. Trustee Goubert,
In favor?
Trustee O'Hearn Jornota,
In favor?
Trustee Murphy.
In favor?
Glad to have you back, Trustee Murphy.
I had my headphones on. I was trying to be fancy. Didn't work.
Trustee DeRosa,
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien,
In favor.
Trustee Duart,
in favor.
Trustee Agnew.
In favor?
The policy will be brought to next week's board meeting. Moving on to item 4.3. This is policy III-01. Can I have someone move that the policy committee recommends that policy III-01, complaint, grievance procedures, non-unionized group members be forwarded to the January 19th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval?
I'll move it. Trustee Agnew?
Trustee Agnew moves, seconded by
Duart,
Trustee Duart. We have Superintendent O'Hara on the line. Superintendent O'Hara, if you could walk us through the changes proposed.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. The policy III-01 was reviewed by staff and just made recommendations to make some very minor changes to the policy itself. Essentially, we have changed the title of the policy, which previously reads grievance procedure, non-unionized employee groups, put complaints in front of it. Essentially, we're trying to make it sound less unionized, and we've changed the word griever to employee in the policy. That's all the changes that we're recommending, and subject to any questions, that's all.
Thank you, Superintendent O'Hara. Trustee Duart, you have the floor.
hey, Madam Chair, just an observation. I think this is a very important policy. First of all, it talks about procedure as the heading, and then it talks about policy. That's confusing me. So I'm just wondering whether this is a policy or whether this is a procedure. So number one. Number two is this is a very important policy, and I'm just wondering if there's only 3 points out there, whether that's sufficient and covers everything. So Superintendent Executive Officer O'Hara, if you could just clarify that.
Certainly, and through the chair, essentially, it's describing a process for any complaints or grievances that a non-union employee wants to put forward. So I recognize that we use procedures and policies separate, so we could go and take a look at making the procedure word change to process, if that would be better. The reason why, again, there's not a lot of detail in it. Essentially is that we do believe it's sufficient to go and say that an employee should be taking their concerns to their superintendent to look at resolution. We do not have many, certainly complaints, concerns that come through that, and things do get resolved informally. I do think that there's not a need to go and have the details that you would see in a collective agreement for non-unionized staff.
Madam Chair,
Thank
could
you.
I
Yeah,
propose,
Trustee Dewar, did that answer your question, or do you
yeah,
have a follow-up?
could I propose the word procedure to change to process in the title?
Sorry, just give me 1 second. Thank you here. So you would like to see it read complaint grievance process?
Process, because it's not a procedure really. Procedures are different from policies, right?
Right, but it's a policy on the procedure, like on the complaint grievance procedure. Superintendent O'Hara, do we have a procedure with this, or is it just the policy?
Again, through you, no, it's just this. So I wouldn't have a concern with changing procedure to process.
Okay. Do we have any objection to Trustee Dewar's recommendation?
No.
Okay. So we can make that change. Superintendent O'Hara, you'll make that change for us?
Yes, we'll take care of that.
Okay, Trustee Dewar, do you have a follow-up question?
No, thank you.
Okay. Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to Chief Executive Officer O'Hara. Chief Executive Officer O'Hara, if the grievance is about the immediate supervisor, what is the process?
Again, through the chair, and thank you for that question. Essentially, the employee would go to the next higher level position. So if their concern is about a supervisor, they would go to the manager. If their concern was about a manager, they would go to the superintendent. If it's about the superintendent, it would be about the Director of Education.
If that is the case, Madam Chair, shouldn't we list that in this policy then? Because I don't see it.
Superintendent O'Hara, where would you suggest, if we were to put that in there, where would you suggest it to go?
The policy does go and say employees can bring their complaints, concerns directly to a superintendent or the Director of Education. So it is in there. And the caveat is that you should try to address those issues at the supervisory level. So I do think the intent is covered. If Trustee O'Brien is looking for more meat there, we can certainly work on that.
Through a follow-up, Trustee O'Brien, are you satisfied with that, or would you rather see something that's more clarifying?
Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to see something more clarified, because I do believe, I can't see it. It does sort of say you should go to your immediate supervisor first. I think it should be laid out clear that I think you need a bullet that says if the immediate supervisor is the object of the grievance, then it goes to the next person in the, I think they said the chain, whatever term they used. I think that needs to be clarified.
Okay, so if it's requirements.
Yes, and Madam Chair, I think requirements is a good place for that.
So if the supervisor involved is unable or unwilling to find a solution to the legitimate problem after 1 week, the employee may forward the complaint to the next level up in the organization and continue until resolution. So if it is, should there maybe then a note that says, should the complaint involve the individual's immediate supervisor?
Yes, I would like
the complainant shall move to the next step, or
that's well said, Madam Chair. Just like that would be good, and then as a separate bullet.
Okay.
I think that's very well
Is
said.
there any, Marta? Is there any way for us to show that on the screen to make a change there, or?
No, because it's PDF, Nancy, so we can't make the change in a PDF document. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So let me write this out then again. So it would be the bullet right after this here. Hold on. Okay, so the next, let's see where it says, the next step says employees who bring complaints, concerns directly to superintendent and or the director will be directed, maybe this is where it goes, Trustee O'Brien, will be directed to their immediate supervisor whenever appropriate, unless the complaint directly involves said immediate supervisor.
Right, and then you had a good comment there, Madam Chair. I forget how you said it. In which case it would go to the next.
In which instance it would be appropriate to be brought directly to a superintendent and or the director.
Okay, I can live with that.
Is that okay?
Yes. I have a comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, hold on. Let me finish writing this first, Trustee O'Brien, so I capture it. Otherwise, it's lost.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think I've got it. Okay. Sorry, you have a follow-up, Trustee O'Brien?
Yes, a comment. I totally respect the chain of command. Keep one thing in mind, these are non-unionized people who don't have anybody advocating for them. I mean, I come from the teaching world where if you have a grievance, you have a union person walking with you the entire way, coming to the meetings, helping you write out the grievance itself. These people are pretty brave to bring up grievances forward anyway, and if they brought it to their immediate supervisor, that would be itself quite threatening. I'm wondering if we even need more in this to make up for that. I mean, the idea would be that everybody was unionized. I'm a strong believer in unions myself, and that they are a necessary organization. But for groups like chaplains and some of the other ones that are not unionized, I really think we got to work to protect them. And if one reason possibly why we don't get a lot of complaints is because maybe there is an intimidation or a feeling that they don't have the right to complain, or that they don't have any support groups with them. Could we say something? I'm just throwing the idea out that in the process, any employee can bring some kind of representation with them. I'm just an idea, I don't know, but I just throw that out to for Chief Executive Officer O'Hara and my other trustees. Love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee O'Hara, or Superintendent O'Hara, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Most of again, we're a highly unionized environment within Halton Catholic, and so most of our non-union staff are made up of management staff, although there are, certainly some clerical staff that are non-union. We haven't had a lot of issues here. When we have concerns, they would be brought, again, forward and addressed. The Director of Education and certainly HR has always had open door policies to go and listen to individuals' questions, concerns, complaints. So we certainly in my many years here, we have not had we haven't had a lot of issues where we've had to deal with. I also think that again, we operate fairly and within our moral values and the values of our organization and as a Catholic board, and so we are not heavy-handed in how we deal with our staff. I would also like to make one comment on the wording. I'm not sure that using the word involve the supervisor would be sharp enough. I think it needs to be a complaint about the immediate supervisor, because certainly it could be a concern that they have around a decision made as opposed to how they feel that they've been treated. Again, I think if there's a concern around a decision that was made, say for example it's having your vacation not approved, the employee should go and speak to the supervisor around their concern and get an explanation before they're going to their manager or superintendent. So again, I think it shouldn't be involving, it should be about. So that was just, again, a suggestion on the wording to go forward. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to respond to that.
Absolutely.
Executive Officer, you say that you don't hear a lot of complaints, but I have to be transparent in this. I do hear the complaints, and I do hear them from your non-unionized personnel. I try to lead them through the process, but a lot of them will not take the step to grievance. So I do hear them. So I'm wondering if there is not a vehicle of welcoming open exchange over grievances. I'm just wondering that because I can only lead them up to the policy. That's all I can do as a trustee. So that's how I respond to what you said.
Okay, so Trustee O'Brien, you have a recommended change brought forward. Does anybody have any issue with that recommended, not change, but addition?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair.
Okay, so then let's go around the table and ask who's opposed and who's in favor. So I will start with Trustee Agnew. This is adding that additional language that Trustee O'Brien, I can read it out again, which would follow under the second bullet under requirements. Okay, Trustee Dewart.
Could you read that statement? I'm just waiting to hear that.
Sure. So the bullet says employees who bring complaints, concerns directly to superintendent and/or the director will be redirected to their immediate supervisor wherever appropriate. Where the complaint involves their immediate supervisor, it shall be appropriate for the complainant to bring such concerns forward directly to the superintendent and/or the director.
Yeah, I like
You're
that.
okay with it?
Yes, I like
okay.
it.
Trustee Agnew, I know you're having some mic issues. Are you good? Do you want to? Okay. Are you okay? No problem. I'll come back to you. Trustee O'Brien, obviously you're good with it. It's your suggestion. Trustee DeRosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I'm happy to support Trustee O'Brien's recommendation, but I have a question. Question period?
Okay. No, we're not done the question period yet. We're not voting on the actual changes.
So
no. You're still in the queue.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Trustee Antomasi, did I see you joined us? Okay, Trustee Murphy?
I'm okay with the changes.
And Trustee O'Hearn-Giannotta, you're not okay with the changes?
I am not, and I'll wait in the queue for my hand up for my comment.
Okay, no worries. Trustee Agnew?
I'm in favor, Madam Chair.
Okay, Trustee Goubert?
I'm in favor of the changes.
Okay, so we'll make that addition in that bulletin. And thank you, Trustee O'Brien. I'm going to move on to the next person, if that's okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, Trustee DeRosa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and for Superintendent O'Hara. I would like to launch, keeping in vein of the recommendations that Trustee O'Brien has, which I support. We might want to entertain the possibility of an independent third party to adjudicate a case where a situation has been referred and non-resolved all the way up the line. I throw that out as a possibility to try to put some independent recourse for an employee who isn't satisfied with the answers he's getting up the line. It's just a suggestion.
Just so I understand, Trustee DeRosa, these are just general complaints. These aren't specific complaints that fall under, let's say, occupational health and safety, anything that's mandated. These would be general complaints that involve their employment. Like I think Superintendent mentioned, like a vacation or a request for time off complaint. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Chair, I don't intend to try to make a distinction, and maybe a distinction down the road needs to be made. All I'm launching is the possibility of trying to provide in the process an independent resource that an employee who is not unionized can rely on. So,
okay, Superintendent O'Hara, would you like to respond that?
Comments on that.
Yes, that certainly would be quite unusual to have non-union employees have an independent third party process. That usually these sorts, if there's an issue concern, that's outside of other parameters like the Occupational Health and Safety Act or the Human Rights Code, things end with the Director of Education, and the Director of Education's decision is the final decision. I would really caution building in a third-party adjudication process that can override the Director of Education's decision on what are, for the most part, business-type decisions that have been made by management. Again, I think it should end as the final decision with the Director of Education for any non-union complaints.
Thank you, Superintendent O'Hara. Trustee DeRosa, do you have a follow-up, or do you have recommended changes that you'd like?
I'm happy with the answer, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee O'Hearn-Giannotta, you have the floor.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, and Trustee O'Brien, you welcomed other comments, so I guess I'll be the lone wolf here. And I completely disagree with adding this line. I think we're almost barking up the wrong tree. If non-union individuals have a problem, if I'm looking for vacation and my direct manager won't give it to me, then I should feel comfortable enough going to the next level. So for us having to put it in black and white, I think maybe points to another problem, but I think we're just boxing it in, and we should be scaffolding our staff rather than adding it into a policy. So I oppose this just based upon, I think it's kind of redundant. And I think that our staff, our non-union members who are mostly management would understand, because I've had no complaints, so I can't speak to the complaints you've had, but would understand if I've got a problem with my direct supervisor and I don't like the answer, I would take it up to the next level. So I will be opposing that on that basis unless someone else can change my mind.
Thank you, Trustee Jordanota. Do you have a follow-up, or is it just a comment?
No, that's it. I just wanted to explain why I was going to oppose.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so that being said, I don't see any more questions in the chat. So we will take a vote with the changes. So there's two changes noted. The first one is changing it to complaint grievance process. And the second is the additional bullet under requirements. So I will take it to a recorded vote. Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee Dewar.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa.
In favor.
Trustee Tomasi, is he on with us? Okay. Shows that somebody's there, but I guess he's not hearing us. Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee Jordanota.
And just to be clear, Madam Chair, we're voting on changing it to a policy rather than procedure, right?
Yeah, we're voting on the two changes that have been proposed and to bring those forward to the next policy meeting. I mean, the next board meeting. The whole policy is with the changes.
Okay, then I'll have to oppose it as I do not agree in one of the changes. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. Trustee Goubert.
In favor.
Okay, so the policy will go to the next board meeting. Thank you, Superintendent O'Hara. Mind you, I don't think you're going to go too far because we're moving on to the next policy, which is policy II-03, item 4.4. Can I have somebody please move that the policy committee recommend that the policy III-03 teacher performance appraisal be forwarded to the January 19th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval?
Trustee Agnew.
Trustee Agnew moves, seconded by
What?
Trustee Dewar. Superintendent O'Hara, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, staff have reviewed policy III-03 teacher performance appraisals, and other than some very minor housekeeping changes, there's no need to make any further changes to the policy. So subject to any questions, that's all.
Thank you. Trustees, I'll open the floor. Is there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to a recorded vote.
Madam Chair, just a question. I have my hand up, but I typed it as HND.
It just came up right now, Trustee Dewar, so you have the floor.
Just a query, Madam Chair. I just want to know how long this policy has been around in this particular fashion, Superintendent O'Hara.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last time that this policy was reviewed was in 2017. Having said that, teacher performance appraisals, certainly have been in place for many, many years, and they are it's highly regulated under the Education Act and its regulations. So essentially, we do follow the direction of the Ministry of Education and the Ontario College of Teachers on that.
Thank you, Superintendent O'Hara. Trustee Dewar, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. That being said, we'll take this to a recorded vote. Trustee Goubert.
And this is the vote on the motion?
This is the vote on policy II-03, yes.
Perfect, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Trustee Dewar?
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien?
In favor.
Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee Jordanota?
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa?
In favor.
And trustee Intomasi, any luck? Okay. We will move this policy to the next board meeting in January 19th. Moving on to item 4.5, policy I-120. Can I have someone move? I'll just wait for it to come up here. Okay, thanks, Erin. Can I have someone move that the policy committee recommends that policy I-20 integrated accessibility standards be forwarded to the January 19th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval?
I'll move it, Charnota.
Trustee O'Hearn Charnota, seconded by
Trustee Agnew?
Trustee Agnew. Thank you. Superintendent O'Hara, if you could provide some background.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, policy I-20 integrated accessibility standards policy has been reviewed by staff, and we have recommended a few changes to it. If you look at references, we've dropped one reference that's no longer applicable and added in the 2017 reference to the Ontario's Education Equity Action Plan. We've also updated some of the language around electronic communication to bring that more in line with our obligations around a broader scope of how we use communication systems and alternative communication systems. We've also added in quite a bit of language, again, around access to our web content, accessibility, etc., and making sure that we are fitting in with the standards of accessibility that's now required on our websites. Subject to any other questions, that's the changes.
Thank you, Superintendent O'Hara. Trustees, do we have any? Okay, Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor. And just one moment, Trustee O'Brien. Marta, is it possible for us to scroll to the actual policy, please, with the changes? Thank you. Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Chief Executive Officer O'Hara. Mr. O'Hara, does this policy apply to all students and staff?
Thank you for that question, Trustee O'Brien. The accessibility standards apply to more than just students and staff, but certainly the broader community. So certainly we need to go and make sure that access to our board is not restricted to members of the general public, etc. So there are a number of different procedures that are related. Many of those procedures, again, are around access to our board, whether it be dealing with service animals or support persons, etc. HR coordinates the overarching policy, but most of the requirements that fall under the AODA really do fall to various departments, such as Spec Ed, our communications department, facility services. So many of those associated procedures are monitored and governed by other departments within our board. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you for your answer. Yes, it does, and I'm so glad to see we have such a policy that really upholds accessibility. So my question is, Chief Executive Officer O'Hara, if I went to any school, then all the playground equipment should be accessible to every single person, correct?
Again, through the chair, they would have to meet the standards and requirements to be accessible. When you say that, should they meet every possible standard? There is some grandparenting that may have to happen, for example, in a facility. Ryan Merrick would be better to address that particular question, because certainly there is some grandparenting with respect to, say, for example, facilities, but actual playground equipment, again, that's not my area of expertise. That would really fall to curriculum and facility services. They would need to meet certainly the standards that are required, but many of the standards do have some grandparenting involved in it.
So, Madam Chair, can I redirect that question to Superintendent Merrick then? Again, if I walk down the playground, would all playground equipment be accessible to everyone in accordance with this policy?
I'm not sure that Superintendent Merrick is actually on the call, but I do see that Director Daly has his hand up. So maybe let's hear from him and see if he maybe has some insight. Director Daly?
I actually had my hand up for something else, but Superintendent Merrick is not on the call, so I can't answer that question. Trustee O'Brien, I think the best I can do is be able to bring an answer back to the board meeting if it's still a question at that point, the specifics of that question. And if I could, through you, Madam Chair, I did raise my hand. Trustee Yantamasi did connect with me about 7 or 8 minutes ago, maybe 9 minutes ago, to raise a point of privilege. He can't access the meeting. He can hear the meeting, but he can't seem to be able to participate in the meeting. So I did want to let you know that he's raised that point of privilege.
Okay, so first things first. Thank you, Director Daly. Trustee O'Brien, I want to finish your question first, because we'll do that. Does that answer your question? We'll get a response back from Superintendent Merrick.
Yes, on the caveat that we could have the response before we vote on it at the board meeting.
Okay. Director Daly, do we think we could get that answer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Is that satisfactory, Trustee O'Brien?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Daly. Thank you, Chief Executive Officer O'Hara.
Okay. In regards to the point of privilege, I'm not sure how I deal with that, Director Daly. There is a way to call in. There is a way to get online. I wasn't aware that he was having issues until 5 minutes before the meeting that he was calling in. So I'm not sure how we help facilitate him joining into this meeting at this point. Does anybody have any suggestions? We have, Bill, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I know you're on the call if you are actually on standby right now, but do you have a suggestion?
Sure, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. From what we've seen from telephone phone-ins, there could be a feature on your phone to push *6 to unmute yourself, and then *6 once again to mute yourself, similar to the microphone toggle we use all the time.
Thank you. So do we know if this has been communicated to Trustee Yantamasi? I know I have not communicated to him, but Director Daly, is he aware that there's that option? Or Bill, Mr. Cripps, do you know if he knows that option?
I've recently texted him, and I assume right now if he is listening in, he could try it to see if it works. Okay,
Trustee Agnew, if you'll bear with me just 1 minute, I'm just going to, if you could humor me so that we can see if Trustee Yantamasi is able to utilize the, I think it was #6 and to mute and unmute.
*6.
Or *6. Trustee Yantamasi, if you are on there, can you try and say hello? It does show that there is a caller on the line. So Trustee Yantamasi will need you to press *6 to unmute yourself.
Madam Chair, it's not working. Pressing *6 is not working.
Does he have an alternate way to even dial in by his phone? To join in, not dial in, but join in on his cell phone onto Teams?
That could be.
The other option is him calling out and calling back in.
Yes, that would also work. It would just be something where no one should be muting any of our telephone call-in individuals.
Okay. So, Trustee Tomasi, I understand you can hear us. We're going to ask for you to hang up and call back in, and then we will try the feature.
Vincent Ian Tomasi
is now exiting.
Okay, perfect. So he's exited. So we'll wait for him to call back in, and then we'll troubleshoot it one more time. Director Daly, did you, are we good?
Well, I'm assuming he's trying to call back in.
Oh, no, I just wondered if you had something else. I thought you were.
No, sorry. No, I'm good.
Okay.
Point of privilege / suggestion, if that is allowed.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Back in the day when we first started, I know Trustee DeRosa had issues and he called me on my cell phone and I just kept him on my cell phone as I went through the meeting. He could hear and he could speak at his leisure. So that could be plan C.
Okay. Thank you. We'll try that.
Yeah.
And I know, and I think that was when we were actually in person, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I was at home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this and we'll go from there. I'd like to say we break for a music break, but do we want to, Andrew, do we want to maybe see if we, or actually, let me talk to the trustees. Are we okay if we maybe take a 5-minute break, and I will try to work this out with Trustee Tomasi? It looks like he's calling in. So if you need to do anything, we'll just take a quick 5-minute break.
I would support that, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Vincent Ian Tomasi.
So I will work
now joining
this. I'll work with Trustee Tomasi on trying to do this, and Bill, and see what we can't do. Trustee Tomasi, can you hear us? Trustee Tomasi? Trustee Tomasi, can you try hitting #6? Or I mean *6, not #6, *6. Okay, so the suggestion has been made, Trustee Tomasi, so as not to, as this doesn't seem to be working this evening for us. If there's a trustee that you could call and we could put it on, somebody could put it on speaker. And then you can hear through that. I know Trustee Hernsernota actually suggested it. She has done that with Trustee DeRosa in the past, and it seemed to work. So if you're okay with that, Trustee Tomasi, I would ask that you call another trustee and we can try to facilitate it that way. I'm not sure what other suggestion I can make for you if you don't, unless you can join Teams from your actual cell phone. I know you're having internet issues, but they're using maybe your cellular data.
said that he can text me. So I guess in terms of votes or questions, as opposed to putting him in the chat, he can kind of text me and I can put them in the chat. That might work.
Sure. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, Pat, if you're fine with that.
It's okay with me, sure.
As long as just as long as if it's a question to you, I guess, yeah, sure. I'm fine with that. I don't have any objection to that.
Okay, I think that'll work.
Okay, so once the 5 minutes up, we'll get back started. Oh, somebody else is calling in.
Bill's phone
is now joining.
I think Bill's troubleshooting it. Bill, can you hear me?
Yes, I am from my phone.
Okay, now if you do the *6, is it working?
And then it muted my phone, yes. What I would say, when the *6 feature is pushed when attending by your phone, it does give a brief delay as it states to you that you are being unmuted.
Okay, but I appreciate, thank you for your assistance, Bill. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be working for Trustee Untitled tonight. So Director Daly
is now
has graciously agreed to ask or do any questions through him. Andrea, you let us know when 5 minutes are up. Oh, we're good to start again. Is everybody back?
I'm back.
Okay. Brenda's here. All right, thank you, everyone, and I apologize for our technical difficulties. Trustee Agnew, you have the floor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to give Trustee O'Brien a little bit of context from what I know with respect to the current playgrounds that we have in our schools. So we converted, I believe, all, if not most, over to the naturalized playground. And so when that was done, the board worked with a company, a landscape company or a landscape architect company that helped design, and their mandate is to follow the AODA compliance to make sure that those playgrounds were AODA compliant. The concept being that anyone with a disability would be able to have access or participate in those playgrounds. What I will say is that for people who are familiar with the AODA, the guidelines are not always, so the minimum guidelines are not always functional.
What a privilege we lost to your voice, Trustee.
Sorry, I didn't hit anything, but so sorry, I don't know where I left off. But just as an example, as it pertains to the AODA compliance. So if you take a look at something like a playground, the AODA compliance might say that an acceptable surface would be wood chips. And I don't know why they think that's an acceptable surface, but they'll say that's an acceptable surface. But if you know anything about wood chips, when they get wet, when they get displaced, it's very difficult to move a mobility device or a child that's using canes or anything like that across that surface. And so the argument could be made that by putting in wood chips into a playground environment, as an example, you are meeting the AODA standards. But there's also another piece to that, which is looking at things from an inclusivity lens to make sure that everybody is able to participate. So as an example, with the current kindergarten playgrounds that we have, I know that there was another layer that our facilities team took where they engaged a few different people from the board to go out and take a look at those playgrounds and take a look at different ways to make them more accessible. So things like raised sandboxes, because how is a child with, let's say with a walker or wheelchair going to get into a sandbox? So things like raised sandboxes, paved pathways through, and bringing some of the elements that were on the outside of the playground in, so that kids who are on the path would be able to access them. So the reason I bring that up is that the experience that I've had with the facilities group is that they have always gone above and beyond. So they, at a minimum, they meet the AODA standards. As an example like that with the playgrounds, and then there's sort of that extra layer to take a look to make sure that it is actually, somewhat barrier-free and accessible for the students and staff that might require it. So I think that's where it can be a little bit challenging. Even if you're mandated to meet the AODA compliance, sometimes those requirements really are at a minimum. And the hope is that associations and organizations and companies will go above and beyond those AODO standards. So I don't know if that helps at all, Trustee O'Brien, but that's the context I have. And I was involved with some of the design for the playgrounds from a disability perspective. So I don't know if that helps, but I just thought I'd put it out there until you hear from Superintendent Merrick.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. A little bit of extra information there for you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Trustee Agnew. That does clarify quite a few things. I mean, it's like to hear from Superintendent Merrick as well. I'm glad to hear that we're released at the AODA standards. I agree with you about wood chips. I'm thinking of some playgrounds that don't use wood chips that are more accessible, but maybe that's down the road. I'm also looking at the policy. My whole point of the question is I'm wondering if the policy is actually being implemented as well as it could be. I'm also thinking about teachers that have mobility issues too, that are in supervisory situations with children. Are they accessible? Because, I mean, I've spent many years on playgrounds. You do need to be able to get to students sometimes quickly. And I'm glad to see that we're at least the AODA standards, and I am looking forward to hearing Superintendent Merrick's report as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. That was just a comment. There is actually no question in there until we get that information from Superintendent Merrick, correct?
Correct. Okay.
Thank you. Seeing as there's no further questions, I will take this to a vote. Again, we're voting on policy I-20, integrated accessibility standards. I'll start with Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota.
In favor.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee Ian Tomasi.
Trustee Antomasi's against.
Okay. Trustee DeRosa.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee Dewart. Stop eating your dinner, Trustee Dewart. Are you in favor?
In favor. Sorry. You got me.
Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee Goubert.
In favor.
Thank you. We'll present this policy to the next board meeting. We move on to item 4.6, policy II-41, school uniform dress code, school dress code. May I have somebody move that the policy committee recommends that policy II-41, school uniform dress code, school dress code be forwarded along with amendments to the January 19th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval?
Trustee Agnew.
Trustee Agnew moves, seconded by?
Dewart.
Trustee Dewart. And we will hand this over to Superintendent Donalfo. Just to recap, this was an item on the agenda that we had a discussion about last week in regards to addressing elections for those families that are virtual and how we will accept ballots. Superintendent Donalfo, I'll hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. As everyone knows, the 2020-21 school year has had many unprecedented experiences. One in particular is that we now have our virtual learning environment together with our traditional in-person learning environment. At the December 8th Policy Committee meeting, Policy II-41, School Uniform Dress Code, School Dress Code was presented for discussion to address specific changes for families in the virtual learning environment who will be participating in the voting process in their school communities, as we have 3 communities who are going forward, and how they will receive in return an original numbered ballot. As per the policy, effective January 1st, 2021, only original ballots will be accepted, no telephone or verbal voting. A ballot signed solely by a student will be considered a void ballot. Staff and trustees have taken into consideration the challenge this procedure may pose given the current circumstances. In response to the school communities, which include in-person and virtual learning environments, who will be conducting the school uniform vote from February 2021 to March 30th, 2021, the policy is amended specifically to allow for emailing of ballots for families in the virtual learning environment as part of the elementary voting procedures ballot question. The revised policy II-41, School Uniform Dress Code, School Dress Code is attached for review and consideration for the Policy Committee. And I see there's some questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Donalfo. And I will start off, trustees. We've got Trustee O'Hearn-Giornotta. You have the floor.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. In regards to this policy, I know that I brought it up at one of the meetings in regards to getting any kind of some sort of stakeholder feedback in regards to the new process. Can I ask a question? Was anyone at the school level, council chairs, anybody like that talked to in regards to the change of this policy?
I can probably start to answer that, Trustee O'Hearn-Giornotta. This was in direct result to the discussion we had at the last policy meeting in regards to the virtual, how we handle it, and the questions of the couple of schools that were left. And it was specific to this situation. So this did not go out for stakeholder feedback. It was concerns that were brought forward from schools that were having to do election or do votes this year in regards to the school uniform policy.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. No, I remember that conversation. That's why I'm just clarifying that we did not move forward because I was opposed back then, that we weren't even going to ask anybody from a school council. So I just wanted to clarify nothing changed, and we're going to add this based upon no school feedback. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. My goodness. Trustee Egg.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. I'm just looking at the second point, which says the signed ballot of the revised policy, where it says the signed ballot must be scanned and photographed and returned to the principal by email. I just wondered if if we could put wording, or if there's a mechanism to acknowledge receipt of that email. I know that sometimes things can go into junk mail or things can happen, and I'm just wondering if there's a way for when the principal receives that email that they could just send an acknowledgement, even if it just says received or something, to the original sender. I don't know what people think about that, but I just thought it's an extra measurement just to make sure that they know that their ballot was received.
So Trustee Agnew, just to be clear, so we would add just a bullet, maybe underneath the signed ballot must be scanned or photographed and returned to the principal by email. We could add another ballot that says the principal shall acknowledge receipt of said ballot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, something to that, exactly, something to that extent. An email will be sent back acknowledging receipt of the ballot. So something to that effect would be great.
Okay, trustees, do we have any objection to that addition? Okay.
Madam Chair, how many,
Superintendent,
sorry, oh, I did have a question, Madam Chair, but I'll get in line.
thank you. Superintendent Donalfo, are you okay with that, or do you need me to email you what that addition is?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We can make that amendment to that additional bullet around receipt that the principal would send back. No problem.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Trustee Agnew, do you have a follow-up?
No, that is perfect. Thank you very much for that.
Okay. Trustee Dewar, do you have the floor?
Through Madam Chair, on the same topic, I just want to know, a ballot will be signed, will be given out to each parent, and a ballot sign will be received by the principal. So is there a mechanism by which we are going to be tracking those ballots? There could be a possibility of multiple responses coming from the same family. So are we going to track those ballots coming back?
Superintendent Donalfo, do you want to take that question?
Again, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Trustee Dewar, we will have a mechanism for the principals. When it's face-to-face, all the ballots are numbered. So when the principal receives it, it has to be with the same number and the email that they originally sent it to. So there's going to be a tracking process that the principal will be going through.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Does that, do you have a follow-up, Trustee Dewar?
No, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Trustee DeRosa, you have the floor.
Just a point of curiosity, how many ballots are we talking about potentially?
Superintendent Donalfo, do we have an idea of virtual learners? Is that you or might be somebody?
I can answer the question. Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustee DeRosa, so there's 3 schools that are going forward with the uniform vote: Canadian Martyrs in Burlington, St. Luke's in Oakville, and then Our Lady of Fatima in Milton. So St. Luke's Oakville has the smallest school population, so less than 200 for that school. Canadian Martyrs is just over 200, and we're looking at about 400 for Our Lady of Fatima.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Donalfo. Trustee DeRosa, do you have a follow-up? Okay, so we will then, with the addition, the new bullet addition, which is acknowledging receipt of ballot from emailed ballots, we'll go to a vote. Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee Dewart.
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa.
In favor.
Trustee Ian Tomasi.
Against.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Janota.
Opposed.
Trustee Goubert.
In favor.
Okay, the policy will be presented to the next board meeting. Thank you, Superintendent Donalfo. Moving on to information items. We have the following for information items. These are the policies that follow with the procedures. Do we have any questions for any of those, trustees? Trustee O'Brien?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I would like to direct a question to Director Daly about procedure. I-20 integrated, oh, sorry. I don't have the number. The one about cameras. Which one is that? Procedure
Video surveillance.
5-46?
That's 6.2, VI-82. Oh, sorry, I mean VI-83.
VI-83.
6.3.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Director Daly. Director Daly, excellent procedure. And I'd like to address one of the bullets. Under principles number 8, it says that cameras will not monitor areas where students and staff have an expectation of privacy, such as change rooms and washrooms. I think that's an excellent bullet. The privacy of students is sacrosanct. It must be respected at all costs. I'm really glad this bullet is in here. At the same time, Director Daly, I'm aware that a lot of the worst bullying takes place in these areas. So my question to you, without being able to use cameras, without being able to have people supervise in these areas, how can you guarantee our parents and students that there will be no bullying in these areas?
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. So I think maybe we should, I understand that piece, but I think we should probably understand it. If Mark's still on the line, maybe he can explain why that is in there, because I believe that there's a greater piece to that as to its requirement to be there. And then we can go to Director Daly to answer your second part of the question.
Okay.
Okay. Mark, are you still with us?
Yes, and through you, Madam Chair. From a privacy perspective, we can't, as you know, we can't put cameras in washrooms. That'd just be wrong. In fact, I guess what you're raising here is probably, it's not really, it's from a video surveillance perspective. I think it's a different issue. It has to do with the question is, how do you deal with incidents that take place in areas where we don't have cameras? I mean, the purpose of this policy or this procedure is really to ensure that we have good information management practices that comply with our current privacy legislation and to keep the environment safe and to, when required, be able to provide evidence. Above that, I don't know how much. I mean, I think it's probably better for Pat to address this, your question.
I would agree.
Yep. No, thank you. I just wanted the point about why that language is in there, that it's mandated. There's a reason why, from a privacy perspective, not just from our policy and procedures, but from a greater body. Director Daly, if you can answer Trustee O'Brien's second part of his actual question.
Yeah, I could try. Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, certainly bullying prevention goes well beyond surveillance cameras. Safe schools conduct goes well beyond eyes on situations. I think that's part of the work we did around with the working group around our safe schools and bullying prevention initiatives. There's no doubt that a guarantee can't be made in a particular part of the building that something could happen untoward. I think the continued work that we do around bullying prevention, around making students feel comfortable approaching adults when they think there's an issue, around work we can do to encourage students not to be bystanders, will help us maintain a level of safety and comfort for students and staff. And that's ongoing work.
Trustee O'Brien, do you have a follow-up question?
I'd like to respond to Dr. Daly's comment. Thank you, Director Daly. I totally agree. Those are excellent strategies. To stop bullying in these areas is extremely difficult, maybe impossible. And I think your initiatives to make students aware of not being bystanders is a great strategy. I'd like to keep this conversation ongoing, and if there are any other suggestions, support mechanisms you have for the board, I would certainly like to support that. Because again, these are the areas where some of the worst bullying takes place. And it is also a place where we have the least control. So again, I thank you for that answer. And if you do have anything else you'd like to add to that, I certainly would like to hear that.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I guess in part of that, Trustee O'Brien, while responding to incidents that have already happened is obviously not very proactive, when there are incidents between students, whether they're incidents of bullying or physical harassment or those sorts of things, if they do happen in areas that cameras are not allowed or cameras can't capture. Certainly an investigation as a follow-up to see what students were in the area, who might have been in the area, who's leaving a particular change room or going into a change room. Those can all help in the investigative process after the fact. Obviously, the work that we want to do is focusing on helping eliminate the act before it happens.
Thank you, Director Daly.
Thank you. Trustee Duart?
Through you, Madam Chair. I was just looking at this policy procedure somewhere here for record retention. It talks about video retention for 30 days, whereas somewhere else in the same procedure it talks about the maintaining the board's retention schedule once a year. They would revisit that. So combining the two together doesn't make sense, because first of all, you're saying you're going to destroy records after 30 days. And then in another place in this process, it's saying the process is to revisit it once a year. And the big question here is, what happens if somebody brings up a complaint after 30 days? Where's the evidence in that? Is there a possibility of somebody bringing up the complaint after 30 days? Or we denied that? So maybe Secretary Daly can respond to that. Not sure.
Thank you, Trustee Duart. Director Daly?
Thank you.
Sorry, I see Mark's video on as well, so I think we're going to have a combined response.
Mark, yeah.
I was just going to suggest maybe Mark could talk a little bit about some of the requirements around what we can keep and what we can't keep and how long and why.
Thank you, Director Daly, and through you, Madam Chair. Excellent question. I'm glad you brought it up. 30 days applies to the recordings that are not looked at or touched. So because there's so much activity, so much recording taking place, if we don't actually look at something, there's no requirement to keep it. I mean, this is an IPC, an Information Privacy Commissioner recommendation is to keep the recordings for 30 days. The 1 year that you're referencing there applies to footage that is retrieved to be looked at, maybe for an investigation. If the investigation looks as if it will be ongoing or longer than 1 year, then I believe there's a note in this policy here, or this procedure, to apply what's referred to as a legal hold, which would mean the recording would not be disposed of until any type of proceedings have concluded. So there's 30 days for footage that has not been looked at, and then there's 1 year for footage that has been looked at. In some cases, a parent could come back and say, I want to see the footage of that incident that took place. So if we've retrieved it and we need to be able to make it available in the event that there is an FOI request for that footage.
So, Madam Chair, follow up.
Thank you, Mark. Yep, Trustee Duart.
So what happens if a parent comes and complains after 30 days? Will we entertain the complaint, or will we say we don't have evidence, so just don't bother me? I mean, sorry, but
yeah, no, excellent question. I'm sorry I didn't get to that through you, Madam Chair. So the answer is if it happens after 30 days, it happens after 30 days. Our procedure and our policy is 30 days. Now, so how do we deal with that? We could extend it. There's nothing. If we need to extend it, we could change it to 45 days. But the recommendation is 30 days. So maybe what we do is we look at helping people be more proactive in how they report something. So something does take place, we want them to tell us as soon as possible. So maybe through education, we help students and and families for that matter better understand, what the requirements are. Now, if somebody comes back and says, well, it's not long enough, I'm simply going to point to the recommendations provided by the Information Privacy Commissioner of Ontario and the guidelines they've provided all institutions in the province with regard to video surveillance.
Madam Chair, since there's nobody in the queue, can I ask another question?
Sure, Trustee Dewar.
Okay, so again, and that brings up another question. What has been the past history in our board? Have we ever utilized this video data that's been collected, and we surely have been collecting in the past? Have we gone back beyond 30 days and never looked at it in the past? Is there precedence?
Through you, Madam Chair. That's, again, another great question. I know I've had, since I started here in March, I've had, I believe, 2 requests, but they've all been within the 30-day time frame. I'd actually have to go back and talk to and ask Ryan within who administers or is sort of the IT technician that manages that part of the process on the IT side, for him to say, I'd have to ask him, have this ever happened before? To the best of my knowledge, I would say it has not. Not to say it won't happen, but again, if it does happen, I would simply, and someone asked me, I would simply go back and I would respond with the IPC's guidelines are 30 days, and that's how I would respond.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Trustee Dewar, thank you. Seeing that there is no other questions in regards to the, oh, I lied. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, through Madam Chair.
Can you just let us know which policy or procedure you're referring to, so we know we can follow along?
It's another procedure. It's procedure V1-46C.
Okay, the use of support person by the general public?
Correct. Question through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Daly. I wasn't aware of this procedure, and I'm just wondering what type of person this would be that would have to be invited in to assist.
Director Daly, did you want to handle that?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So it could be somebody to physically assist. It might be somebody to assist in terms of being able to better understand information. Typically, it's around more physical needs. Maybe I see Superintendent Bakaich has a hand up, so maybe she can help me out there.
Thank you, Director Daly, and through you, Madam Chair. Yes, O'Brien, it would be a case, for example, if there was a parent who needed a support person to attend an IPRC meeting or any kind of teacher and parent conference meeting. Sometimes with a physical disability,